A builder with 20 years swinging a sledgehammer pulled up to a quiet house in rural California one Tuesday morning. He unloaded his tools, walked to the back, raised the hammer to smash an old concrete wall, and froze. What he saw painted on that wall stopped him cold. He refused the job. The owner couldn't believe it. But what happened in the days that followed changed everything. This is the story of a wall that refused to come down and the quiet way the Virgin Mary worked through it. Before we continue, share in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. Let's see how far the miracles of the Virgin Mary have reached. And if you haven't yet joined our family, subscribe now, because here, each day, we witness the tender love and mighty power of the Mother of God. Carlos Rivera was 39 and still strong enough to carry bags of cement up ladders. But his left knee ached every time rain rolled in from the coast. He had been laying blocks, plastering, and tearing things down since he was 19. 20 years of hard labor showed in the calluses on his palms and the way he walked with a slight limp on damp mornings. Jobs used to come steady. Lately, the phone stayed quiet for weeks at a time. He lived alone in a one-bedroom apartment outside Fresno, drove a pickup with 230,000 miles on the odometer, and prayed it would turn over every morning. Around his neck hung a small silver medal of the Virgin Mary. It had belonged to his mother, who cleaned houses for 35 years and never once let him hear her complain. She died 8 years earlier. The medal was the only thing she left him that he kept close. He never took it off. Not to shower, not to sleep, not to work. It rested against his chest like a promise he didn't fully understand but didn't want to break. That Tuesday, the phone finally rang. A demolition job. Tear down an interior dividing wall on a property someone had just bought. The pay was solid, enough to cover rent, groceries, and maybe put something toward the truck's next repair. Carlos wrote the address on a scrap of paper, loaded his sledgehammer, pry bar, and safety gear into the bed, and drove out. Victor Morales had turned 57 the month before. He bought the house to start over. Large lot, single story, fresh white paint, quiet road lined with almond orchards. He moved in alone. The place felt too big. No pictures on the walls yet, no mail piling up with his name. Just boxes still taped shut in the garage and a refrigerator that echoed when he opened it. His plan was straightforward. Fix up the house, then turn the empty side lot into a backyard with a pool and barbecue space. He pictured summer evenings, music, people over. Something to fill the silence. What stood in the way was an old concrete wall, 8 feet high, 20 feet long, separating the house from the lot. Previous owners had left it standing for decades. Someone, years ago, had painted an image on the center of it. The Virgin Mary. Blue mantle, hands joined in prayer, face calm and gentle. The colors had faded under sun and rain. A thin crack ran nearby, but never touched her. Victor saw only an obstacle. The wall had to go. What he carried inside was heavier than concrete. 5 years earlier, his marriage of 22 years ended. The fight started small and grew ugly. Words cut deeper than either meant them to. His daughter Isabel sided with her mother. At least that was how Victor saw it. He pulled away. Stopped calling first. Stopped texting. Waited for her to reach out. She waited for him. Neither moved. 5 years passed. 2 years ago, Isabel had a son, Mateo. Victor learned about the birth through a cousin who still spoke to both sides. He never received a photo. Never heard the boy's voice. Never held him. Birthdays came and went. A baptism he wasn't invited to. He told himself distance would help. New house, new county, new start. But the ache followed him. Tuesday morning, Carlos arrived. Victor met him at the gate, shook his hand firmly, pointed to the wall. Everything down today if you can. Clean break, haul the debris. I want that space open. Carlos nodded, walked the length of the wall, sizing it up. Good condition overall. Easy enough. He reached the middle and stopped. The painting looked straight at him. Blue mantle soft, even in decay. Eyes peaceful. He touched the metal at his throat without thinking. His mother's voice came back unbidden. Mijo, never raise your hand against what is holy. He stood there 10 seconds, maybe more, Victor noticed. Problem. Carlos kept his eyes on the image. I can't do it. Victor frowned. What do you mean you can't? That painting. It's the Virgin Mary. I won't put a hammer to her. Victor looked at the wall, then back at Carlos. A short laugh escaped him, half disbelief, half irritation. It's an old wall. Some graffiti from who knows when. I'm paying you to clear it. I understand. But I won't. Victor's jaw tightened. I'll add $50. 75. Name it. Carlos shook his head slowly. It's not the money. Victor stared. Silence stretched. Then he stepped back. Then leave. I'll find someone else. Carlos gathered his tools without argument. He loaded the truck, started the engine, and drove away. Dust rose behind him on the gravel road. Victor stood alone beside the wall. Anger burned in his chest. Unprofessional. Ridiculous. He pulled out his phone and called 3 other contractors. The second one could come tomorrow at 8. Problem solved. At least that's what he told himself. But as the day wore on, Victor kept glancing out the kitchen window toward the back. The wall stood quiet under the afternoon sun. The blue mantle caught the light in a way he hadn't noticed before. He turned away, busied himself with unpacking a box, but his eyes returned to the window again and again. Victor spent the rest of that afternoon pacing the house. Every time he tried to focus, unpacking a box, checking emails, making coffee, his eyes drifted to the kitchen window that looked out toward the back. The wall stood there unchanged. The blue mantle of the Virgin Mary caught the late sun in faint glints. He told himself it was nothing, just an old painting, just a stubborn worker. But the irritation sat heavy in his chest. He called the second contractor again to confirm. 8 sharp the next morning. Good. He went to bed early, turned off the lights, stared at the ceiling. Sleep came in fits. At one point he got up, walked to the living room window, and looked out. Moonlight fell across the concrete. The image looked almost sharper in the silver light. Hands folded, face calm. Victor pulled the curtain closed and went back to bed. Morning came. The new crew arrived on time. A man in his 30s named Mike and his helper in a dusty van. Victor led them straight to the wall. Start at the far end, he said. Work your way in. I want it all down today. Mike nodded, hefted his sledgehammer, and swung. The first blow cracked concrete near the edge. Chunks fell. Dust rose. Normal work. Victor stood close, arms crossed. Watching pieces pile up, they moved steadily. 10 feet. 15. The painting came closer with each strike. Mike paused once to wipe sweat from his forehead, glanced at the image, then looked at Victor. You sure about this part? He asked. Victor nodded. Keep going. Mike raised the hammer again. One more swing landed solid. Another. The wall trembled. Victor watched the blue mantle get nearer. Something tightened in his stomach. He opened his mouth to say continue, and instead heard his own voice say, stop. Mike froze mid-swing. The hammer hung in the air. Stop. Victor stared at the painting. The colors, faded as they were, seemed to hold his gaze. Yeah. Stop. I changed my mind. The helper exchanged a look with Mike. Mike lowered the tool slowly. We're not done yet. I know. Just pack up. Come back next week if I call. Victor's words came out flat. He didn't explain. He couldn't. Mike shrugged. Your call. They loaded their gear, got in the van, and drove off. Dust settled again. Victor stood alone. He felt foolish, angry at himself now instead of at Carlos. He walked inside, slammed the door harder than he meant to, and paced the kitchen. What the hell is wrong with me? He muttered. He poured water, drank it fast, paced again. The wall stayed standing outside the window. Mocking him. 3 days passed. He avoided the backyard, kept the curtains drawn on that side. Work on the house stalled. The pool plan stayed folded on the table. One afternoon, he finally tackled the last moving boxes stacked in the guest room closet. Old papers, tax files, photos he hadn't looked at in years. He opened one box near the bottom. Yellowed envelopes. A few loose pictures. He lifted them out one by one. Then he found it. A small photo, edges curled. His daughter Isabel at 7 or 8 years old. Inside a church, she held a lit candle in both hands, flame steady, smile wide and bright. Behind her, on the wall, hung an image of the Virgin Mary, blue mantle, gentle face, hands open. The same pose, the same quiet look. Victor's fingers tightened on the photo. He hadn't seen it in decades, hadn't remembered keeping it. The tightness moved from his stomach to his chest. Memories came fast. Isabel small, holding his hand in mass. Her first communion dress, the way she used to ask him to light candles for her dolls when they were sick. He sat on the edge of the bed, photo in hand, staring at the background. The Virgin Mary looked back from the picture, same as the one outside. He felt the air leave his lungs. Not anger this time. Guilt. Sharp and old. He slid the photo into the nightstand drawer and closed it fast, as though shutting a door. But the image stayed in his mind. All evening he kept seeing it. Isabel's smile, the candle flame, the blue behind her. That night he lay awake longer. The house was silent except for the low hum of the refrigerator. He got up once, walked to the kitchen window, pulled the curtain aside just enough. Moonlight again. The painting on the wall looked peaceful, unmoved. Victor let the curtain fall and went back to bed. The pool project didn't move forward. The barbecue plan stayed on paper. He told himself he would call another crew soon. He didn't. The wall remained. And something inside him, something he had buried under new paint and new plans, began to stir. A week slipped by after the second crew left. Victor kept the curtains half drawn on the back windows. He told himself the wall didn't matter anymore. The pool plan stayed rolled up on the dining table, untouched. He went through the motions. Coffee, work calls from his laptop, dinner alone, but the house felt heavier. Every time he passed the kitchen window, his eyes flicked outside. The blue mantle waited there, unchanged. Then the phone rang. Unknown number. He answered. Is this Victor Morales? The voice was familiar. Calm. Steady. Yes. This is Carlos Rivera, the builder from last week. Victor's grip tightened on the phone. Silence stretched for 2 beats. I know I sent you away, Carlos said. But if you still need work done inside the house, flooring, bathroom fixtures, whatever, I can do it. Fair price. Victor stared at the wall through the glass. He should have hung up. Should have said no thanks and found someone else. Instead, he heard himself say, come tomorrow. 7. We'll talk price then. He hung up before he could change his mind. Carlos arrived at 7 sharp. Pickup truck parked neatly. Tools clean and organized. Victor met him at the door, led him through the empty rooms. They agreed on scope. New laminate in the living area. Replaced the leaky bathroom faucet and shower head. Patched drywall where boxes had scraped. Simple jobs. Victor paid half up front. Carlos started without small talk. Hammer taps, saw hums, the quiet rhythm of work filled the house. The first days passed in near silence. Carlos worked steadily. Victor stayed in his office or ran errands. When they crossed paths, Victor gave short instructions. Carlos nodded, answered with as few words as possible. Lunchtime, Carlos ate in his truck, windows down, radio low. On the 4th morning, Victor brought 2 coffees from the kitchen. Black, no sugar. He set one on the sawhorse near where Carlos was measuring baseboards. Thanks, Carlos said. He took a sip, set it down carefully. Victor lingered. You always work alone? Most days. Easier that way. Victor nodded. He didn't leave. After a moment, he asked, family? Carlos paused, tape measure in hand. No, never married. Mom passed 8 years back. That's it. Victor looked at the floor. Lucky. Carlos glanced up. Why lucky? Because when you have it and lose it, Victor trailed off. He rubbed the back of his neck. It's worse. Carlos didn't push. He went back to measuring. But the door had cracked open. Over the next days, it opened wider. Victor brought coffee again. Stayed longer. Asked small questions. Carlos answered simply. One afternoon, while Carlos knelt replacing the bathroom valve, Victor leaned in the doorway. Married 22 years, Victor said out of nowhere. Ended ugly. Fights. Words you can't take back. My daughter, Isabel, she took her mom's side. Or I thought she did. Call stopped. Text stopped. 5 years now. Carlos tightened the fitting. Didn't look up right away. 5 years is long. It is. Victor's voice dropped. She has a son, Mateo, 2 years old. I've never seen him. Not once. Carlos finished the turn, wiped his hands on a rag. He stood slowly, looked at Victor. My mom died 8 years ago. Cancer. Fast. I kept thinking about things I never said. Ways I could have helped more. Now there's no number to call. No door to knock on. He touched the metal at his neck. She left me this. That's all. If I could talk to her one more time, just one, I wouldn't waste a second. Victor stared at the small silver oval. His throat moved. He nodded once, turned, and walked out of the bathroom. That night, Victor couldn't settle. He paced the living room, sat on the couch, stood again. Finally, he went to the back window. Full moon. The wall stood silver gray. The painting, half in shadow, looked almost alive. Hands folded, eyes gentle. Victor retrieved the photo from the nightstand drawer. Isabel small, candle flame bright, Virgin Mary behind her. He held it to his chest, sat on the edge of the bed. Then it came. A scent. Roses. Soft. Fresh. Not from a bottle or a candle. Real roses, warm and close. The windows were shut. No vase in the room. No flowers anywhere in the house. The fragrance wrapped around him for perhaps 10 seconds. Gentle, then faded completely. Victor sat still, heart beating hard. He looked around the empty room. Nothing moved. The scent was gone, but something stayed. A calm he hadn't felt in years. Not peace exactly. Not yet. But the knot in his chest loosened just enough to breathe deeper. He put the photo on the nightstand, face up this time, and went to bed. Sleep came easier than it had in months. The next morning, Carlos arrived with his usual quiet nod. Victor met him in the kitchen, poured 2 coffees without asking. Carlos, Victor said, that painting on the wall, can it be fixed? Cleaned up? Made to look right again? Carlos set his mug down, looked out the window toward the back. Yes, won't be perfect like new, but a lot can come back. Careful cleaning, touch-up colors. Takes time. Victor nodded slowly. I want you to do it. Carlos studied him for a moment. Didn't ask why the change. How much? Nothing, Carlos said. I won't charge for that part. My thanks to the Virgin for sending me work when I needed it. Victor started to protest. Carlos raised a hand gently. We're even. Victor looked at him, then out at the wall. Okay. Carlos began the restoration that weekend. He worked carefully, soft brushes, mild cleaners, small tubes of pigment matched to what remained. The blue mantle started to brighten. The face took shape again, serene as ever. Victor watched from the porch sometimes. Said little, but inside, something kept building. A pull he couldn't name. Toward the phone on the table. Toward the name Isabel and his contacts that he wasn't ready yet. But he was closer. Victor stood on the porch one evening while Carlos worked on the wall. The sun dipped low, painting the concrete in warm gold. Carlos used a fine brush to retouch the edges of the blue mantle. The color deepened with each careful stroke, soft sky blue turning richer, more alive. The face emerged clearer, eyes gentle, lips in quiet peace. Hands joined perfectly again. Victor watched from a distance, coffee cooling in his hand. Inside the house, the phone sat on the kitchen table like a challenge. He picked it up a dozen times a day, scrolled to Isabel's name. Thumb hovered over the call button. Then he set it down. Fear whispered, she'll hang up. She'll say it's too late. She'll say nothing at all. Pride answered back, you waited this long. What's one more day? He paced, drank water, sat on the couch, picked up the phone again. 2 full days passed like that. Carlos kept working outside. The painting grew more beautiful with each hour. Victor kept glancing at it through the window. Each time he looked, The hesitation inside him felt smaller. Thursday night arrived. Victor sat on the back porch steps. Air cool. Crickets loud in the dry grass. From where he sat, he could see the wall clearly. The restoration was nearly done, the mantel vibrant, the face serene under the porch light. He looked at the image, looked at his phone. The screen glowed in his palm. Before he could talk himself out of it, he pressed call. The line rang once, twice, 3 times. His heart hammered against his ribs. Voicemail picked up. Hi, this is Isabel. I can't answer right now. Leave a message. Victor's hand shook. He almost ended the call, but he didn't. Hi, it's me. Your dad. His voice came out rough, cracked at the edges. I know it's been too long. Way too long. I should have called years ago. I should have tried harder. I think about you every day. About Mateo, too. Even though I've never met him, I think about him. If you want to call back, I'm here. That's all. Okay. He hung up, sat staring at the dark screen. The wall stood silent in front of him. The Virgin Mary looked out over the yard, unchanged, and steady. 3 days went by. Nothing. No call. No text. Victor checked his phone every hour. Morning coffee. Midday lunch. Evening dishes. Nothing. He told himself it was fine. He had said what he needed to say, but the quiet hurt worse than silence before the message. On the third day, Carlos finished. He cleaned his brushes, packed the small cans of pigment, wiped down the concrete around the restored area. The painting looked renewed, not brand new, but cared for. Colors bright where they had faded. Details sharp again. Victor walked out to look. It turned out good, Victor said. Carlos nodded. It did. They stood together in front of the wall. No words for a minute. Just the sound of wind moving through the almond trees nearby. Victor's phone rang inside the house. He froze. Heart slammed once hard. He turned, walked fast through the back door, almost caught his foot on the threshold. Grabbed the phone from the table. Screen showed Isabel's name. He answered. Hello. Silence on the other end. 2 seconds. 3. Long enough for doubt to rush in. Then her voice. Soft. Careful. Hi, Dad. Victor leaned against the kitchen wall. Legs weak. He slid down until he sat on the floor, back to the cabinets. Hi, my girl. His voice broke on the last word. Another silence. Not angry. Just full. Too much to say. No place to start. I got your message, Isabel said. I'm sorry. The words came fast. I know sorry isn't enough. I know I should have. Yes, she said simply. You should have. He closed his eyes. Nodded even though she couldn't see. I know. She breathed in. Let it out slow. Mateo's here. Right next to me. He's playing on the rug with his cars. Victor repeated the name softly. Mateo. Yeah. He's 2 now. Big for his age. Talks nonstop. Most of it doesn't make sense yet. Victor smiled through the tears starting in his eyes. I'd like to hear that someday. More quiet. Then Isabel spoke again. We're not okay yet. Not all the way. But maybe we can talk more. I'd like that, Victor said. Whenever you want. The call lasted maybe 12 minutes. Short sentences. Long pauses. A few times they both started talking at once and stopped. No big declarations. No instant forgiveness. Just the first thin thread pulled through 5 years of distance. When it ended, Victor stayed on the kitchen floor a long time. Phone still in his hand. He looked toward the open back door. The restored painting waited outside in the evening light. Something inside him shifted. Not fixed, not whole, but moving in the right direction. The weeks after that first call unfolded slowly, like pages turning one at a time. Isabel and Victor spoke again a few days later. Short conversations, careful words. No rush, no pressure. She told him about Mateo's favorite toys, how he loved stacking blocks until they fell. Victor listened, asked small questions, memorized every detail. One afternoon she sent a photo, Mateo in a park, blonde curls under sunlight, pushing a little red truck across grass. Victor stared at the screen until his eyes blurred. He saved the picture, set it as his lock screen. looked at it every time he unlocked his phone. Carlos finished the last touches on the wall that same week. He stepped back, wiped his hands, nodded once. The Virgin Mary looked out over the yard, mantle deep blue again, face peaceful, hands joined in quiet prayer. Nothing flashy, just restored, cared for. Victor thanked him. Carlos touched the metal at his neck, smiled faintly, and drove away in his old pickup. Victor kept the wall standing. The pool plan stayed in the drawer. The barbecue area never broke ground. The side lot remained empty grass and wildflowers. He didn't mind. The space felt different now, less like something to fill, more like something to hold. One Saturday morning, almost a month after the first call, Isabel texted, "We can come next Saturday." Mateo too. Around 10. Victor read the message 3 times. His hands shook when he typed back, "I'll be here. Thank you." He woke at 5 that day, even though he didn't need to. Showered twice. Shaved carefully. Put on a clean button-down shirt still stiff from the store tag. Cleaned the house again. Counters wiped. Floors swept. Pillows straightened. Even though everything already looked perfect. He drove to the bakery in town, bought a small chocolate cake with white frosting, the kind kids like. Set it on the kitchen counter with plates and forks. Checked the front window every 5 minutes. Heart racing. Hands cold. Fear mixed with hope so tightly he couldn't tell them apart. A T1040 silver sedan turned onto the street and pulled up slowly. Victor stepped onto the porch. Isabel got out first. Hair longer than he remembered. Face older, but still his daughter's. She looked at him. Anger there. Hurt there. Something softer underneath. She opened the back door. Lifted Mateo from the car seat. Light hair. Big eyes. Chubby hands clutching a blue plastic car. Victor walked down the steps. Slow. Legs heavy. He stopped a few feet away. Isabel set Mateo on the ground. The boy looked up at the new face. Curious. No fear. Victor crouched until their eyes met. "Hi, Mateo." Mateo studied him a second. Then held out the toy car. Small. Blue. Wheels worn from play. Offering it like the most normal thing in the world. Victor took it. His fingers closed around the plastic. Tears came fast. He didn't hide them. "Thank you," he whispered. Isabel watched. She didn't speak right away. Victor stood slowly. Looked at her. "I'm glad you came," he said. She nodded once. "Me too." They didn't hug. Not yet. The moment stayed simple. Honest. Mateo tugged at Victor's pant leg, wanting the car back. Victor gave it, crouched again, rolled it across the porch with him. Small wheels clicked on wood. Laughter, high, bright, filled the air. Inside the house later, Mateo ate cake with messy fingers. Isabel sat at the table. Victor poured coffee. They talked. Not everything. Not all the hurt. But enough for one day. When they left, Isabel buckled Mateo in, turned to her father. "We'll come again," she said. Victor nodded. "Whenever you want." The car pulled away. Victor stood on the porch until it disappeared around the corner. Then he walked to the backyard. The wall stood quiet under afternoon sun. The Virgin Mary looked out, blue mantle bright, face gentle. He touched the concrete once, lightly, like thanking an old friend. Months passed. Visits grew longer. A few hours became full days. Then overnights. The refrigerator filled with juice boxes, yogurt cups, animal crackers. The living room wall, once bare, now held a framed photo. Mateo smiling, holding the blue car, the first picture in the house. Victor never explained it all. Not to Carlos. Not to anyone. He didn't start going to Mass every Sunday. But the medal he wore now, small, silver, like the one Carlos carried, stayed close. And every night before sleep, he looked toward the back window and said quietly, "Thank you." Sometimes miracles don't come with thunder or light from the sky. Sometimes they come through a builder who says no to a hammer, through a photo found in a forgotten box, through the smell of roses in an empty room, through a man who finally picks up the phone and says, "It's me." The wall stayed standing. The painting stayed restored. And the real wall, The one Victor had built between himself and his daughter began to come down, brick by quiet brick. If this story touched something in you, write the wall in the comments. Because we all have walls we need to stop tearing down and start rebuilding. I read every one. Each time I see it, I'll know another heart believes miracles still happen, gentle and patient, through the hands of the mother who waits. May the Virgin Mary continue to watch over you, to soften what is hard, to heal what is broken, and to bring your family close again. Amen.